Welcome to A State of Mind. This is Julian Royce. I'm recording this here in my office where I work as a therapist, meditation teacher, and facilitator, and I'm excited to bring you a new episode because I truly believe in the power of conversations to change lives. Please check out the show notes for each episode to learn more about the topics covered and our guests, and check out the affiliate links of all our sponsors. That is a wonderful way to support this podcast, as well as visiting our Patreon page to support the podcast directly. I want to share with you about kanna. Kanna is an amazing herb from South Africa. The scientific name is Salatium tortuosum, and it's been used for centuries to support mood, emotional openness, and connection. I've been working with a company called Ka and Pathogenics here in Boulder, and I have an affiliate link below so you can order it and support the podcast. And I just want to share a little bit more about it. There's been some amazing scientific studies showing that people taking kanna actually score higher in compassion and empathy and openness, and it's a mood uplifter. It helps you feel better, almost like drinking a strong cup of dark chocolate cacao might be something similar, but it's different than that. It has its own unique feeling. One cautionary note is it's not recommended if you're taking SSRIs or other drugs that act on your serotogenic system, and you should talk to your healthcare provider. So this isn't healthcare advice or medical advice, but kanna is legal and it is powerful and potent, and it can be a helpful ally in your path. So if you're interested in exploring it more, check out the link below, and I look forward to seeing you there. Another way you can support this podcast and improve your overall health and wellness is through Shilajit. Shilajit is a traditional mineral-rich resin. It's been used for thousands of years in the Himalayas, and it's really incredible. I have access to really high-quality Shilajit that's been tested and made sure that it doesn't have any harmful additives, nothing like that. It's from the Ural Mountains of Russia, and you can message me at the link below in the podcast show notes if you're interested. And I'll just share a little bit about Shilajit. It's actually formed from ancient plant matter that's been compressed over centuries. It's very high in fulvic acid and trace minerals. It helps support mitochondrial function, energy production, and nutrient absorption. And a lot of people today are using it for vitality, endurance, cognitive clarity, overall resilience. It can taste a little gnarly, but I like to drink it in the morning with warm water, which is a traditional way to take it. And if you haven't tried it out, try it out. It's definitely been a game changer for me, and I think it's a great way to start off your day. Another way you can support this podcast as well as your health and wellness is to check out the blue light blocking glasses from EMR Tech. There's an affiliate link below in the show notes, and they're making really high quality glasses that I think are also pretty fashionable. There's different glasses for during the day, for during the sunset, or for during the evening. And I think this is a simple thing that we could all start doing more that can really improve your health. It'll improve your sleep at night if you wear them during the day and at night. There's research showing that blue light suppresses melatonin. It disrupts our circadian rhythm, negatively impacting our sleep quality, our recovery, and our nervous system regulation. And so as more and more of us are spending more time on screens, having things like good blue light blocking glasses that you actually like to wear, I think can be really helpful. So check it out below. Let me know if you have any questions.
Well, Julian, thanks for having me back for part 2, and thanks for providing some party favors via your sponsor, Mycelium.
Yeah, I'm super grateful to Mycelium for sending me the sample pack with so many different products combined with so many different herbs. They've got a coconut creamer, a cacao blend, a focus blend, an energy blend, a calm blend, and a love blend, which might be for later.
Off camera, please. This one's the focus blend. So we're talking about lion's mane, gotu kola, a bit of cacao, and what was that other ingredient?
Let's see. We've got ginkgo biloba, gotu kola, lion's mane, and cacao.
They might even edit that. But the main brand is 100 micrograms a pill. I did this at the World Series of Poker last year. I actually did a freestyle rap for these guys at the MAPS conference, and they gave me a supply. And 200 micrograms, you are reading the room so well. So never underestimate the power of beautiful fungoids in gnarly environments.
Sounds like a superpower.
Sounds like a superpower, sir. Boom.
All right.
One intention.
All right.
First take's best take.
Oh, always.
Okay.
And would you like that cut separate as just like a video short sent to you?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay. And then do you
I'll talk to them.
want
But
that as an intro for the podcast too?
maybe for this episode.
Yeah, we're splitting up part 1 and part 2, I guess. So
Yeah.
Because Duncan introduced it.
and this is where we want L microphone.
Oh yeah, Mike. Put this guy on silent. I think I'm gonna have one of the people from that company on the podcast and see if they'll be a sponsor for the podcast. So
That's a good
I'll let you know. I might record another one, but at least for that,
Cool.
for an Instagram clip.
Alright, we are set, still recording. I'll switch back to Julian and we'll get it rolling.
Let's see. I guess that would be enough.
Yeah, just give me a hand gesture for like 15 minutes left, because in this thing I
What
can't
was
see
the?
time.
Remember
Just-
the thing you said about Epstein, where you said money was
money was human
backed by?
blood.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
talk about that at some point.
Eventually.
We'll
No,
get there.
he's like, if you talk about that first.
No, not
suddenly we
first.
have half an hour left.
All right.
This is where I want this.
That's perfect.
Great.
Let's step forward for this. All right. These chairs always kind of throw me off a little bit. Oh, there we go. All right. How are we looking?
Looking great.
Looking good.
State of mind.
Ready? Okay. Duncan, so glad to have you back for round 2 on A State of Mind podcast.
My pleasure. I mean, round 1 was so much fun that I'm just glad that you opened up the pearly gates of State of Mind to have me again. And like, there's nothing as beautiful as the power of stories that can be shared, you know, just like
I agree.
getting
Yeah.
it out, moving. I'm sure you know it in your personal practice, like the
Yeah.
power of you being a place for people to tell their stories. So happy to tell mine.
Yeah. I'm excited to dive in. You know, it's interesting. We've actually evolved biologically to understand the world through story. And that's why movies move us so much, stories move us so much. Like you could look at a bunch of statistics, but then at the end of the day, it's the story that we can make of that moves people to action and to feel. And part of that is the emotion it brings up. You
Right.
know, like if you ever see an ad for like a charity, they almost always will show a single girl, like, you know, donate money to help the people in Somalia, for example. They don't show a graph with how many people, this and that. They show a single girl because that's how we can connect emotionally.
Well, and that's the moment we're all in as well, right? That's the meta crisis that people are talking about right now is really like a collective story crisis. So and the number one currency of the current age is trust. Trust that your story stacks up. Trust that the story that you're telling is actually reality. Like when people have a big enough story, they can coordinate on that stories. And then like mental health issues come when your story doesn't match reality, but it's so painful to release coherence with that story and cohere with reality. And then the other thing that we're talking about, right? Because it's ritual theater, spirituality, and mental health. Ritual theater creates stories for people to participate in.
Yeah.
So long as they actually trust the reality of those stories more than the stories they're already being told.
Yeah. Change your story, change your life. Well, what's going on with this thing you're wearing? What is this?
So this is an Ecuadorian blanket. It's made out of alpaca. You can feel it. It's really,
nice.
really nice. So these are kind of my walking jammies. And I had the pants made for me by a former partner who is just like brilliant at pattern, brilliant at design. And it is apparently the Ecuadorian creation myth. So instead of, they didn't really have a written language in the Inca Empire. They actually communicated with like knots on a string. It was this binary knot system that was their entire written language. So they communicated a lot of their story in the patterns of their fashion and their fabric. And the other thing I really like about this is it's duality, like non-duality through dualities, like all of the interlapping patterns of black and white, or the masculine and feminine, like it corresponds to a play within duality, which is always an aesthetic that I really like.
I love that. Yeah, looking at it, it's that play of black and white. You can't tell actually which is the background color and which is the foreground. And that's how a lot of optical illusions play with that. Which are you focusing on? And the background and the foreground can shift.
Yes.
And that was a big part of Gestalt theory, actually, Gestalt therapy, just something I trained in. And it was like you could choose, back to telling the story, like you're the main character in your story going through your life. And Gestalt therapy will play with taking other people's perspectives, even taking an object's perspective in the room. And that focus of like what's background, what's foreground, and shifting that consciously. And it opens up a lot of space, a lot of possibilities.
Well, a lot of like the work of, say, Grotowski in theater works with Gestalt therapy. You're putting yourself into different patterns. Like there's a deep blend between spirituality and theatricality. I'd say most like theater schools and music schools are like 80% of Hogwarts, but without the position on reality, because you just have to stay fresh to jump into whatever reality the director and the writers have assigned for you and make that reality as real as possible. You know, it's up to the actors to choose good directors who are going to treat them humanely and good writers who are going to give them the right material. But great actors can make mediocre writers into geniuses the way that they choose to deliver it and make those stories real.
Make them come alive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, let's go back. So in our first episode, first conversation that we had, we ended with getting more into your own life story, and you were sharing with us experiences in elementary school being bullied. Maybe we pick up there.
Sure. So I can do a quick run through, because we did pick it up a little bit on last episode, but I was just like straight A student selected for a couple of genius programs in the state. So like there were like little eyes on me. It was like 50 people in my elementary school grade were brought out for a cohort. So like this is like a state level thing. And so a lot of the other kids were jealous that I had that much attention and energy from others on me. And one of them orchestrated like a 2-year bullying campaign. So I didn't know about this whole thing. So my situation got like worse and worse and worse progressively as like a 10 and 11-year-old.
Jeez. Like
right before puberty, like some of these chemical reactions are starting to come up in the brain. And I didn't know why I was suddenly so much less popular. Like I was put in a 5th grade math class in 2nd grade, and I was focused very strongly on like human goodness, like befriending the bullied kids on the playground and accumulating all of the world's knowledge, because that's what like a Duncan in suburban New Jersey was supposed to do. So I was like reading encyclopedias and doing that whole thing. Eventually the bullying got so bad that it was so emotionally intense that like I went into a depressive mode, and I had to figure out in that transition between elementary school and middle school how to not take so much damage.
Yeah.
And so it developed a lot of different aggressive and pretty fascinating coping mechanisms to do that ended up being very successful in the short to medium term, but distracted me or distanced me from my actual self in the long term.
Yeah. Remember, so one thing that brings up for me is just this amazing reality of human existence that's easy to forget about. But as when you're born and you're starting to grow up, time has this quality of seeming to go faster the older you get. And so when you are 4 years old, 5 years old, even 10 years old, 1 month feels like maybe like what a year might feel like to an adult, or 6 months, and those experiences are also new, and there's a lot more novelty. But it's good to recognize like little kids have such a complex, rich world. They can experience all the different emotions. The events that happen then affect us, and they can stay with us. And part of my work with people will be going back to these younger parts of ourselves and helping them heal, through seeing them, through witnessing, through bringing support that they maybe didn't have at the time. And sometimes it can even be through changing the story, using imagination, bringing in a superhero, bringing in a hero, bringing in your adult self that's mature, that's full of love, that understands that those kids were bullying you, they didn't understand at the time. And actually experiencing a sense of support from that future self in that memory. if that makes sense.
It does make
So,
sense. I mean,
yeah.
storytelling is a huge part of the sense of self. So like the story of ourselves really resonates and really matters. Say what you want about Aleister Crowley. He's a bit of a freak in many different dimensions. One of the positive things he brought to his magical groups was like for a new initiate, they would have to write their entire life story from their earliest memories.
Oh, interesting.
You rewrite it from start to finish to actually get up to speed on the story that you're telling right now.
That can be really powerful work. Well, so one of the things you were sharing was how at that age, in response to that, you developed this persona and a kind of personality, and that helped you and it served you. But then later when you went to Amsterdam, it kind of fell apart and you had to recreate yourself. At least that was my understanding. Do you want to speak to that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So it's like I actually wrote a 13-page guide to personality simulation, or personality assimilation, not simulation. Like I was like very low affect by 6th grade. Like a lot of the joy had been beaten out of me. And so I was like, I need to select some people who are enjoying life and not getting the shit beat out of them in order to model those aspects of myself, or like have that positive affect given to me. So like I chose 6 other popular dudes from like 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, modeled their features on my personality, tried out like different class clown characteristics and different popular dude characteristics and different like, you know, like
it's amazing that at that age you were aware of that and kind of consciously playing with it. But then there was a cost of not just being yourself, not being authentic, not just expressing what was true for you.
It's true. And like that opportunity was also putting me in a new environment. So going from, there were 5 elementary schools, right? And there's 1 middle school. So if I'm going to the 1 middle school, only 20% of the people know the character that I was playing, which was like the nerd who got beat up all the time. And 20% of people experiencing that, they're going to hold on to that character. But if I can do some swift stuff demonstrating value to the other 80%, they're going to have less incentive because they'll be risking their social capital. So it became this like very like social capitalistic way of seeing the world.
Interesting.
You know, and like you come up with a few algorithms for that work. Like within 3 years, I was class president and captain of the wrestling team, and I'd won an award for singing in choir.
Captain of the wrestling team.
I was captain of the wrestling team.
I did not know that. Amazing.
I'm a fairly decent wrestler. I like angles, and I have double jointed shoulders, so I can get out of a bunch of sticky situations.
Amazing. Yeah, it's interesting. Moving to a new school is a chance to start over and express your personality differently. So is just moving to a new place. And some people I've worked with have been going through a really tough time, and they're like, should I move? And we've looked at that, and I've actually worked with some people who have moved and kind of started new, and that can be really healthy. You know, we have that option. You can move, you can start over. It's not easy, but it is a chance to kind of meet people who don't know your past and like show up in a new way.
Well, and you set up your environment from the ground up, right? Now, when we're kids in school, like that environment is chosen for us, both by our parents as far as where we live. And it's one of the most intense jobs possible, like going to school as a kid, right?
It's intense. Yeah,
it's really, it's like 7, depending on like, it's either 7 a.m. to like 3 p.m. and then extracurriculars and then homework.
Right.
Like for 5 days a week. It's more intense than almost all adults' jobs. And so like the amount of novel experiences, like you're engaged with like 100, 200 different people in your grade or more. So you're coming into contact with all of these different people. Like each hour is a whole different set of like 30 kids. There might be like 5 in common through the hour and another teacher and another subject. It's really brilliantly designed in a way. Like if school could be optimized for the way that the human brain and emotional system works, like it's a great gift to be giving people if they're focused on the right things. And like if work could be scheduled like that, there's really not a ceiling to how beautiful people can become if they have environments that can shape themselves in a good way.
Unfortunately, a lot of us don't have an environment that really brings out that best in us.
Well, and I was shaped to optimize for like positive attention and to protect myself from bullying, right? So that creates like a wall or a screen in front of a self. And like I learned how to do voices and later on learned how to like do freestyle rap and all these fun party tricks, you know, to shape space, to bend energy, and ultimately like to resist being bullied. But if too much of the personality is put to the resistance of being bullied and like a general distrust of the environment and the capacity of the environment to take care of you and to protect you, that can become too much barrier to really dropping into the root, dropping into the heart, like truly interacting with that environment. And so it's like fast forward 11 to 21, like I knew for whatever reason, I really wanted to do magic mushrooms. And I ended up doing them.
Interesting you had the desire in you from a younger age, you know, and some people don't, some people do.
Yeah. Well, I knew something wasn't working right. Like however hard I was pushing, I wasn't like in the line with the reality that I wanted.
Yeah. Well, so, and just to share with people, you know, part of my curiosity with you is your own journey with mental health, because, you know, if someone meets you now, you're incredibly creative. You, for example, put on that play at the Envision Festival that we talked about last time. You've done a lot of stand-up performance, improv performance. You've done a lot with poker, like on TV, like nationally televised poker tournaments.
Yeah.
And you've opened up all this creativity. And so I kind of wanted to like just get a window into navigating mental health. And I almost see you as an example of someone who has found yourself and opened up these doors and helped a lot of other people to become more creative and express. But it wasn't an easy journey to get there, and the ways in which the kind of institutional medical system can unfortunately clamp down that creativity, right? It's not always, I've worked with a number of people who have experienced trauma through being hospitalized, it's a whole big topic, but medical trauma, and it can show up in different ways. I've worked with people who have undergone surgeries and they were, you know, anesthetic.
Yeah.
They were, you know, they couldn't feel anything. They can't remember anything, but the body keeps the score. The body remembers that trauma of having that surgery, and they receive no support from the medical system. And we've done something like a ketamine session together, and this huge door is opened up, and like, wow, what is this that I'm feeling? And then, oh yeah, I had this surgery, you know, 10 years ago, and maybe this is connected. So that's one example. But the other example is someone has a mental health episode, an issue. They're experiencing mania. They're going through something tough, and oftentimes end up being hospitalized for 7 days, 10 days, 14 days, sometimes even longer. And it's basically like being imprisoned, you know, and it's for their own good often, but healing from the trauma of that experience has been part of the work I've done with people. And I'm not painting it as black or white, good or bad, but it's good to put the information out there. And I thought, you know, your story might be a helpful one for people to hear.
Well, because there's so much stigma against it too.
Yeah.
Like at the time I was experiencing stuff and then had lingering symptoms afterwards, like that was hermetically sealed, you know. You don't talk about that because if you still have like the self-doubt or the fear within yourself, that you might not be in a safe space or that you might not be safe. The other people have been also stigmatized to doubt that or to doubt the reality of the story that you're living in. And so when other people doubt the reality of the story that you're living in, they're feeding in doubt to you. You know, if you're anywhere near open and empathetic, right?
Yeah, that doubt can be destabilizing in and of itself.
Yeah, especially to vulnerable people. So it's like a domino effect. So for the record, 39 now, I was hospitalized on 3 occasions at 21 and 22, twice for depression and 1 for mania. So that was at the Carrier Clinic in New Jersey. Cannot say worse things about them for reasons that we can describe. It was like a kind of Nurse Ratched, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest situation in there. Once with NYU Langone Medical Center for 3 weeks in 2008. And then once for 19 days at Bellevue in 2009. So 2 in New York, 1 in New Jersey, tri-state area, very intense place. Highly recommend if you want to learn intense life lessons in a very efficient manner. But the 2 depression were a result of taking an entire like styrofoam refrigerator box of mushrooms in Amsterdam, you know, pretty much as far away as I had been from like my family and the rest of my friends, like on a semester abroad at NYU. So that was like my junior year.
So that's a bit of a cautionary tale. I mean, it sounds like you took too large of a dose. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it was a bunch of wet ones. I think it was 7 Mexican mushrooms and 1 philosopher's stone. Like, I'm not sure.
And why did you take so many at that time?
Because I wanted to have a breakthrough experience.
Okay.
Like I didn't want to like halfway experience the magic mushrooms. I wanted to fully experience them. It seemed like Amsterdam was the place to do it. The setting was completely wrong. The people that I was doing it with were also ill-placed. There weren't like friendly, squishy things around. It was just like strangers in coffee shops at the edge of November.
People you didn't know, and in a different environment.
As soon as I took the shrooms, it started like sleeting, so it's like this kind of like frozen rain falling on an unfamiliar city when my brain is in a completely unfamiliar coordination.
Yeah.
And it just like led to open eye hallucinations and like being devoured by these like thought forms. And just like 2 weeks afterwards, just white space, like absolute mute button on all my emotions or all my sense of personality. Wow. Like the sense of who I was just not there with any of my neuroreceptors. No dopamine, no serotonin, no oxytocin, just kind of like flat affect and like trying to
totally flatlined.
Yeah, it was almost like I replicated the bullying experience, but doing it to myself and with mushrooms. So it's like all of those countervailing voices of like, you're not enough or you're not safe were like manifested by the mushrooms themselves to work them out of the system.
Right. That's so interesting. So trauma has this quality of wanting to repeat itself in order to find that healing that it didn't experience the first time around. And unfortunately, that means that someone who's been traumatized in a particular way in the past has a much higher percentage of being re-traumatized in that way.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like exposure therapy is the queen of all therapies, and that like if you can actually stand up and handle it,
if you're in the right place with the right support.
Yeah, like people are terrified of public speaking. They give one great speech, now their tribal identity is reframed, or they have like weird classroom or family dynamics, and then they get in a good friend group, and like that heals those dynamics.
That's a good example with public speaking that probably everyone could relate to. And there is some danger, some risk, right? Because say you have an issue with public speaking and you get really nervous and you want to get over that. So you sign up to give a speech. Maybe you give a great speech and feel really good about it and get to a new place. Or maybe you also collapse or get really nervous or feel like you messed up again. And then you have to, so it's important to go. I think I'm a big fan of going step by step, slowing down and having a lot of support so that you can move forward.
Well, it's also true that like these big things, like you can't replicate a group trauma or a group breakthrough in one-on-one therapy. You can counsel somebody to move towards that, but like ultimately to flip the script in their brain, they have to be speaking in front of a group of people, and for it to do well, to reset those mental connections.
Right.
And like, so I think like one-on-one, one-on-group, and one-on-tribe seem to me to be totally different neuroreceptors.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
And I've also learned that like if you're teaching somebody to act or you're teaching somebody to improv or freestyle rap, they can be amazing one-on-one, but you set them in front of 50 people and they have a tendency to freeze up because in front of 50 people, they're taking on the projections of all of those people. It's going through their system. So their belief in themselves has to be greater than the doubt of all the people in the audience to give it back to them. And that's one of the gladiatorial nature of like stand-up comedy. It's like one person trying to slay an entire audience. Like note the verbs are like, you killed it out there, man. It's like, yeah, it's the American gladiatorial arena. You're coming up against the doubt of an entire audience that this person can make you laugh, or like a stage magician or something like that. You're looking to bring something to these people that they don't ordinarily see or find. You're tickling them. You're expanding the state of things that they can think about and laugh.
Yeah. And you just shared some good things. I want to highlight from the perspective of neuroscience. When you're by yourself, like you just said, it's different neural pathways that are lighting up versus one-on-one versus a group. And so it's good to distinguish those three. And there's just truth of that in our nervous system. We have the social engagement system that clicks on when we're socially engaged, and it's not clicking on when we're by ourselves. And it's good to know that. Yeah.
So like after those like 2 hospitalizations, the first one was super rough because like I let them know that I was experiencing severe depression because I took these mushrooms. So they put me in the psych ward that was mixed for drug abuse and for psych. So like there were some really terrifying people in there. There was one guy named Michael who said he was the angel Apollyon, like the devourer of souls and stuff. And he was just like, he had to be continually injected with like Thorazine, just like strapped to a bed, would just like be violating the energetic space of those around him on a regular basis and yelling threatening things. Like the kind of guy who you were building a 5,000 piece puzzle and he would just go around in the ward and mess up the puzzle every night before bed.
Oh man. Yeah. I hate hearing that. And it's part of the negative and downside of that institutionalized hospitalization that we're talking about. And it shows the stigma against psychedelics and how you're having this experience in part from a one-time experience with a psychedelic. It's extremely different than someone who's habitually using cocaine or meth or whatever they can get their hands on. And yet you're thrown in there. Part of the trauma that I've helped people heal from who've been hospitalized has come from the other people in the psych ward with them. And sometimes to them personally, and sometimes they've witnessed it. You know, watching someone get beat up, watching someone get sexually assaulted is also traumatic for the person who has to witness that. And it's terrible and that should never happen. Unfortunately, reality is in psych wards, that kind of thing happens. It's probably much more likely to happen. So.
Well, and there's like, you know, sexuality has differentiated between like tops and bottoms. Like there are people who send more energy out and people who take more energy in. Like the fact of the matter is, if you're in a vulnerable psychological state that isn't pathological or harming others, you're taking in a lot from the environment. So there's like an amount of exotic osmosis that is in these environments that like would correspond to hospitals in the 1700s before they developed germ theory. Like you're taking on some of these energetic or spiritual pathogens.
That's a good analogy with germ theory. Like before we knew about germ theory in a hospital, you'd be exposed to all kinds of germs. Now we've gotten really good at knowing about germ theory, but we're not so good about the psychic contamination that can happen.
Well, the psychic contamination, I mean, ideas are alive. Like we're here on the internet where memes are spreading like crazy. These little micro stories for shrunken attention spans that like create a living patchwork. It's interesting. Like if we're going particle up and like, oh, okay, germs cause diseases and scientific method, why doesn't this fully apply to human psyches in transformational states? That like ideas can be living, energies can spread, people can open different parts of their cognition, like their hearts, to dilate huge and be highly receptive. And oftentimes that receptivity to reality on more refined ways causes a lot of these neurodivergences or even pathologies. You know, too much communication with reality without enough filter leads to schizophrenic-like symptoms, visions, voices, where your brain's filtering and processing can't actually filter out reality into a cognizable framework. I even have a friend who's just written a paper that I believe in, that a large majority of the psychic breaks that have been seen in this culture are breakthroughs that have been terminated for the convenience of everybody else who's not going through them. So like if somebody
that's interesting.
Opened it up and then organically was able to like hold their new reality in their cognition, they would be able to automatically filter these energies, these voices, and balance their own energy levels within themselves. In a way that would be deeply serving and deeply worthwhile for those around them.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. So, I mean, obviously, psychedelics hold tremendous healing and transformational potential, and also the risk for negative experiences that happen. And part of what you just shared, part of what can cause trauma is when you're in an important process that gets interrupted. And so if you're on a psychedelic journey and that gets interrupted and it's not held in the right set and setting, that could lead to a break or trauma. But so I guess part of, one thing people can get from listening to this podcast is really respect these medicines tremendously, really research them and make sure you have the right set and setting, right support. And the key foundational piece, if I had to name one foundational important piece, it's safety, a felt sense of safety in yourself with the people around you, and then being seen and witnessed and supported by the people around you, which obviously you didn't have at that time. And a lot of people, a lot of people listening to this, maybe they didn't end up in a psych ward, hopefully not, but a lot of people can relate to an early teenage experimentation with something like magic mushrooms and having it go haywire or sideways. And so what I hope is that as we enter a new age culturally where these medicines are more available and are being used in better and better ways, there's more education out there so that less people have the kind of experience that you had.
Well, totally. I mean, it was a really destabilizing experience because at the time I thought that I had like abused myself to the point where my personality was broken and I'd become functionally retarded. Like it would take several seconds after being addressed for me to even think of the words to say something in return. Like I tested certain aspects of like spatial IQ and found that they were like 40% of what they were before I'd had the test.
That's scary.
It was really scary, but like I eventually got over it 6 months later.
I was going to ask, like, what helped you move forward in your life there?
Well, first off was flipping the story that I was retarded. So I was on a family vacation at this place in Maine, very, very peaceful. And I didn't really know what to do with myself. So I ended up playing myself in chess and like I was like playing the white pieces, and then I had to forget my motivation when I flipped it over for the black pieces, and black and white, all of it. And that act of having empathy for the other version of myself playing chess with myself sparked me to create a kind of a children's book, like a short story that I called The Birdle Box, which was like BURDLE. There's this box where all the different selves within myself could hide out. And it was described by other people as like a crack baby of like Lewis Carroll and Dr. Seuss, just like down was up, like the sky and the sea were reverse colors. And there were like 1,000,001 different selves like climbing up and down the architecture of this thing to get the loudspeaker of the personality that was speaking at the top of it. And when I wrote this, I was like, wow, first off, it was the coolest piece of like Dr. Seussy, Lewis Carroll, just like rhyming poetry that I had ever created. So it was like, it was better than anything that I had done before that. So clearly something has grown. And then by saying it, I was like, oh.
So you wrote this story and other people read it and they're like, this is good.
Yeah.
So that's affirming. And that's, I like that.
But it was also like, oh, there's not just one self. So this myth of the mono self, or like the self that is healthy and the self that is not well, was functionally being spoken to by the piece of art that I created to heal from that specific trauma.
Yeah, that's a super important point. And I 100% agree. I've discovered this in myself. So many people I work with, internal family systems, as you know, has become the most popular, fastest growing form of psychotherapy out there right now. And it speaks to all these different parts of ourselves. And so if we can start to identify and name different aspects, different, some people talk about subpersonalities or parts, it can be very empowering and healing, and we can start to see it in other people. Everyone knows, an example I often give is you're driving, someone cuts you off, you experience road rage to one degree or another, you experience this rush of anger, and then later you kind of come back to yourself, your normal self, and you're like, wow, I was a little bit crazy right then. Like, why did I get so angry? We've all had some experience like that, and it proves how we have these different parts that can take over at different times.
Oh, 100% plus. Okay. 100% plus. And a big part of that is, I think, not trying to struggle to get back to the self as it was before a rupture. Because like that self got calcified, that self built up its own armor that then got broken by its own counterforce. Like the craving and aversion that it had got broken by reality. So just like the note of trying to get back to some kind of normal self can trap people in a healing journey, because that self was never, it was maybe real in a small percentage, but that was the self that we were encouraged to be. So but the other way is not true too. Like getting endlessly curious about the endless variety of selves and navigating all of them can also lock people in a healing journey in that way.
Can be a bit of a trap, right?
Right. So the rarer way is to get some kind of strange democracy, where there's like a ringmaster self that is like leading the whole Muppet show within the self of like all these different performers and all these different voices. And that self is trusted enough by all these other selves to create projects in the world and to inspire other people to do that.
Yeah, so in IFS language, that is the capital S self, our true self, that can become the leader. We can become self-led, and it has qualities of seeing clearly, but having understanding and compassion for the other selves, the other parts there.
I think
Yeah.
so. And I am curious with a reframe on that is like, is that self oneself, or do these little critters come into the shade of it? So you have the capital self with the essence of like the clown, or the capital self with the brainiac leading, or the capital self with the warrior leading, or the lover leading.
Interesting. So I got to actually do this training with Richard Schwartz, who developed internal family systems, at the MAPS conference that happened in Denver in 2023. And, this is a question that comes up, like, do all these different parts or subpersonalities, do they also have parts? Do they also have a self with parts? And he's like, yeah, they do. It's a fractal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of complex, and I don't want to muddy the waters too much, but I like the metaphor of the sun shining in the sky, and the sun is representing our true self. And all these parts also have that sun within them as well.
Well, it's complicated putting that all back together, because, like, as I said, I was hospitalized for depression back in 2007, 2008, and then mania 2009. And so, like, I wrote this thing in the middle, like summer of 2008, and got some clarity. Went back to NYU 2009, dated this woman who was in a yoga cult, and it was called Sahaja Yoga. And the whole thing was about raising your Kundalini. And they had some very effective exercises for doing that. And she was like really cute. And so I was like willing to use that drive from my attraction to her to relax my ideas of what was possible, get to a place where there is no mind, was the little key that I popped out to be able to meditate for the first time with like a mind where all these voices are going on. I had to like cancel the mind altogether to get to that quiet space. And then I noticed like a glowing and tingling up my spine. I had an out of body experience where I was able to like see myself and another friend like from 10 feet above in Union Square, just like our souls mingling.
Some different experiences
that were like related to spiritual awakening processes.
Yeah. Can I share something real quick?
Yeah.
So in this process of healing, like if you are fragmented and you want to kind of reconstitute yourself, you actually don't need to, like you were saying, you don't need to recreate the self you used to be. And it's not a matter of intellectually figuring it out. It's not a matter of using effort. It's a matter of being able to more and more trust our innate healing capacity, our innate system, and it will self-organize. It will come back, and we can trust that.
Yeah. With some caveats too. Like, you can create a spiritual identity like, oh, I know this stuff and other people don't, so I can only interact with other people who get it. And then that creates like a limited new self-identity that's safe and protected from the old stimuli, but like doesn't fully reintegrate. Like, there is an amount of compassion which is required to be receiving input from others and giving them value.
Yeah. It could be a step on your journey to protect yourself for a while and limit your surroundings, or limit the people around you. But yeah.
Well, yeah, because like in order to adapt to this composite sense of self, you have to put yourself in an environment where you're surrounded by that. So whether that's an ashram, whether that's a cult, whether that's like a theater group, like whatever these things are.
Well, and for you, it was joining a yoga group in Bali, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was after like a manic, you can call it an episode, but it was like half manic episode, half Kundalini awakening journey that took place between November 2008, November 2008 and April 2009. And it kind of felt like I was going through this place of heaviness, and I just was able to reframe something in my brain and my energy where I was at the center, like the captain of my ship, creating reality, steering these energies. It was like a day and night transformation where I was like, I don't have to choose to feel so heavy. And then was just like creating parties that 50 people showed up, or like leading little parades through the streets of New York City that just like mushroomed, and like more and more people were joining in. It was very Pied Piper. In the middle of that was just like a sexual awakening too. I got this incredibly sexy girlfriend at the time who just like blew me open, and just by being intimate with her, I could feel her just like devouring the trauma from my body.
Wow.
Like she registered palpably to me as an emanation of the goddess, which is terminology I had never used before. Like I was going into spontaneous yoga poses after spending time with her, and like just the amount of love that she opened up. She was bisexual, deeply polyamorous, and just like I was like, all right, you're in charge of like all of these, like anything that comes into my system is coming in like through you and through your heart and the way that you are interacting. And so it just like it blew me open in so many different ways that I had no familiarity for. And all I was armed with were like, I create my own reality and I know how to keep building the energies in my spine. And for like 3-4 months, it was amazing. And then because I didn't understand how to ground or take self-care, then it started being a little bit frightening. Like I would get less and less sleep, or I would start like seeing visions, or I would have like childhood traumas from like a 6-year-old self come back into view. And I'd be like weeping from some recalled abandonment event, just like a normal thing from childhood that would like pop up directly into view with very little context. It's like I was doing my own research at the time. So I was like, I'm both going through a spiritual awakening and a hypomanic state. And like my doctors at NYU at the time, they had no context for it. They were like, stay on this very high dose of antidepressants with a 4% chance of causing mania and take this antipsychotic at the same time that has like different kidney and liver, functions that I researched on the internet too. So I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want more medicines for my medicine. Like, I want you guys to have a different frame so that I can balance this, because my heart is more alive than it's ever been. It's being independently verified. Like I'm sitting down at cafes in New York, sending heart energy to somebody across the room, and they step up, sit down next to me at the cafe, and are like, I'm so drawn to sit next to you. Like, what do I have? Like, professional poets who studied at NYU who were like following Bruce Springsteen's tour and like saying, when the teacher is ready, the student shall appear. Like you're a beautiful poet, Duncan. This was at the time where I was just like, I was writing and performing poems for like meals at NYU too. So I didn't have the foundation or the resource to be going through this kind of opening experience, this awakening experience. But it's also true that often the people with the resources to support these experiences are so busy with what it took for them to accumulate the resources that they just focus their energy and attention on that process of accumulation. It's like, it's often like the poor poets and the people without foundations who are willing to be transformed in these ways. And it's like, there's such an art to catching somebody at the exact right point of their awakening and presenting them with a teacher that they can respect to anchor those energies in, so they don't just get blasted off and out and become perceived as a threat to those around them, or uncontrollable, or too much, and then harvested and collapsed. And that was my experience at Bellevue and with NYU. They just didn't have context for what I was going through. I didn't have full context for what I was going through. And I would say that my experience is probably typical for a lot of like the top 20% of like IQ, EQ, refined nervous system people who are experiencing this. It's like their brains really are tapped into a different level, but without the communication and grounding, they can't put it in a frame where it is a gift to others. The output is too strong. It becomes a burden for others to digest, even though it's entertaining. And so that led to a few weeks in a really intense mental hospital without titration of any kind of medication. Like they kept the lights on in the intake for me for 3 days until I signed that I was there voluntarily. I chose not to go to the NYU Medical Center because like I had some degree of paranoia. Like when I went back, to the College of Arts and Sciences to talk to the dean there, I said, I think I've been experiencing some hypomanic symptoms. I'd like some time and space to ground, change my major, just like get in right relationship. They didn't make eye contact with me, sent me to the wellness exchange, had me wait there for 2 hours with a security guard that I was familiar with. His name was Alexander. And he was like, after talking to me for an hour, he's like, you aren't crazy. These other kids, they're like sheep. They just do what they're told. No, you just think differently. But like him saying that was a big red flag for me
Hmm.
because I wasn't aware that they had been briefed that I was crazy beforehand.
Yeah.
And then when they sent me to the wellness exchange afterwards in 2009, this was right after the Occupy NYU movement. And I had protested with the street protesters on that. And because I was such a big energy and so articulate, they had interviews with like New York One and the Associated Press. So I didn't do anything illegal, but I was part of the protest against the school for their lack of financial disclosure. And I think they were protesting, the protesters were a very Free Palestine group. I think some of NYU's funds were supporting Israeli or IDF.
So many different issues you're touching on.
Right. I was just protesting because like when I took a week off for depression, they charged me and my parents the full $28,000 for the whole semester.
Right. Yeah. Colleges are businesses, they're run like businesses and their income is the tuition.
Well, and the higher up in the colleges you go, like the more intertwined they are with like world geopolitical events and think tanks and like government research and the whole thing. It's very connected at the top. I mean, like at the top tier, like Oxford, Harvard, they're all former religious institutions too. So like they're meaning making organizations. And if you question their meaning making, they can question your meaning making very sharply, especially if you questioned it directly, deliberately, and in the public view. Like you're creating an opposing effect on you, and you have to have really good integrity and stability to be able to handle their counter pressure without just becoming a caricature of yourself with all the energy they're sending to you.
Yeah, universities have more and more become captured by kind of the far left woke ideology. I've done some other earlier podcast episodes on this around Europa University and around others. But I just, about a month ago, recorded a podcast with a woman. It's a little bit of a change in subject, but she's from Iran. She's earning her PhD. And the amount of kind of oppression she's experienced from the other professors, it's incredible. It's an incredible episode and conversation. She wanted to keep her identity anonymous, which I honored, partly to protect her family in Iran, based on what we were talking about, but then also to protect herself at the university she's at now because of all the flack she's gotten. And she shared with me a story that there's another Iranian student there who is a woman who was brought here for a PhD program. And there was a Muslim professor there who said, "Why aren't you wearing the hijab?" And it was like a huge thing for her because she had left Iran partly because she didn't want to have to wear that. And then she felt pressured, like, okay, you're not you're not being the right kind of Iranian student that we wanted. She went back home to visit her family during Christmas break, and her PhD program stopped her visa, and she had to stay there. She wasn't able to finish her program. So it's interesting for people who haven't been following the story of higher education in this country. It's a bit of a surprise, but there really is like a very limited ideological window that a lot of the professors and faculty members exist in. And anything outside their narrative, they don't like.
Well, I mean, you're a Naropa grad, so enough said.
Yeah. I experienced that a lot at Naropa University. Yeah. It was like there were certain ideologies that you had to follow. And if you didn't, I saw people get kicked out, know?
Absolutely. So it's like learning how to play the game, and like the game has shifted. But I do feel like the far right and the far left really support each other. They support like a secret third thing from above. So both like the uber Christian militaristic nationalism and the like the identity politics, like all identities matter, but like you matter as a noun within your identity. Both of them subvert the capacity to come together in the middle as a whole that's greater than the sum of its parts. And thus like encourage people to be sluiced into places that can be managed from a higher positionality or by power from above. And
super polarized, and you're either on our side or not. There's some element of that mentality in it.
Well, there's a yearning to evolve in all of it. There's a yearning. I
believe so. There's that too. But I believe there's also people who are just cynically playing power games and wanting to support their particular narrative and wanting to attack people who don't.
Because they've been severely traumatized. Because the power games that were played on them by the existing classes have like scrunched them to seeing the direct obstacle in their path as like the big bad, the big dark thing that like we've got to fight dirty to get this out of play. And then there's like Steve Bannon's flood the box with shit strategy.
It's kind of an end justifies the means mentality on both sides. That's making everything worse and more polarized.
That's where theology, again, and spiritual development become more important. Like, if you can come to a place where you have enough love with you and your community and your tribe to actually address the world, alchemize these tensions within your individual and group sphere with love, and create a protected garden, you can actually transform that on the individual level and eventually on the philosophical level. Like, these are typically, most philosophers came out of these geniuses, these scenes that had their own genius, a collective genius based on people agreeing to operate and cooperate in a different manner. Universities used to do that, but the university was based in the Agora in Athens, where people were debating the nature of reality.
There used to be much more free debate and exploring different ideas and honoring different perspectives. And it's unfortunately there's been less and less of that. And that's part of why we've had the reaction against it. I think that's part of why Trump got elected and why he got reelected, was a reaction against that ideology, that far left ideology that's taken over our universities.
Well, we can also look at the far left. Nerd alert, we're going into Foucault's study on madness and the criminalization of madness. So, before asylums, like, yes, the lunatics were in danger, lunatics being the worshipers of the moon, not the sun. So, like, the dark orb of emotion, unchecked, unreason, that ran counter to Enlightenment thinking. And so the people who did that were like the holy fools or the town criers, but it was accepted that their madness was also a weird kind of wisdom. Like, it fit in. And then when you have Enlightenment thinking and the worship of reason alone, now you're getting into, okay, this is abnormal. So the most compassionate thing to do is not to integrate this, but fix it, because they have lost the plot. Their insight is not given a place. They're given a classification as abnormal misfits, and they must be normalized or turned into celebrities or something like that, where they're just like embodying these archetypes for the population to keep more people in line. It's like,
it's crowd control.
Yeah, if you need this flavor, just watch Johnny Depp in this movie and you can kind of relax and go back to your day job. And like, there are only like 100 or 150 people who get to be like Johnny Depp's or whatever, embodying these like wild, weird passions.
Part of what I got from you in our first conversation and in this one is advocating for a society, a culture that can honor more diversity, honoring different kinds of people who are in different phases, different forms of expression. Because there's a tremendous pressure, often kind of unseen, to like walk this narrow path and dot the I's and cross the T's and fit into your box. Yeah. And that's part of what we're speaking to. Like, when you step outside of that, it could be an act of creative genius. It could be a spiritual experience that's actually really profound and could actually help the person experiencing it and a lot of people they'll meet if they can go through it all the way. But that process then gets interrupted with our medicalization, our attempt to control, and sometimes medication plays a role in that. But interestingly with you, so when I first met you, I was here in Boulder, maybe like, 12 years ago, something like that. And then shortly after we met, you said goodbye and you moved back to New York City, and you had a successful career on Wall Street. Yeah. Which to me is amazing. That's part of what I wanted to ask you about. That's an amazing part of your story. Like, it shows a level of competence, of being able to get stuff done, of groundedness and maturity. So just for people listening, like, yeah, you are super creative, and but you're also able to get stuff done, and you're able to show up. And so I respect that balance that you've been able to find and that path for yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And that Wall Street career was fascinating, because like I was operating partially within the feminine in a hyper masculine realm. So it's more of a VC / intuitive aspect. Like, the math, unless you're a quant, the math is like really advanced 7th grader or like slightly above average 8th grader math. Like, okay,
so the math's not that hard.
No. Like, it's almost criminal that this kind of financial math is not taught to students. It tends to be legacy. Like, you pick it up from your father if he's teaching you about the stock markets and the economy. Like, it's primogeniture. It's passed on from like father to son, typically. And so you get a lot of like 2nd and 3rd generation financial analysts on Wall Street. I got it because of some very generous mentoring from the man who brought me into it. And I even got into finance through the spiritual group that I got into to help heal me from the diagnosis of bipolar. You know, like I'd gotten this diagnosis.
So you joined a spiritual group after that was helpful for you, and that eventually led to some of these connections.
Super helpful. Yeah.
Amazing.
Like I worked as a pretty boy cater waiter and an SAT tutor, coming out just like with an apartment in Bushwick before Bushwick was Bushwick. So it was still kind of like.
Well, is there anything you want to share with us about being on Wall Street in that financial world? Because you seem like someone just watching you today on this podcast that's like the last place they would probably imagine you.
Well, I mean, it definitely was good for the autistic side of myself. So like Wall Street, you can understand as like well-meaning autistic people and like wheeler dealers. And we were more of like a Warren Buffett long-term investing, like autistic adjacent firm. So like really into the weeds of like finding the numbers, doing the homework, like, and we were kind of private investigators, as it were. So it's like I'd get a premium LinkedIn subscription, find the companies that were worth finding in these fields. Like we would focus on internet companies in emerging markets. So it's like you don't really have to reinvent the wheel. You see what was successful in America and what will be hitting these markets in 3 to 5 years. And so there are going to be 3 to 5 different competitors. And then you do these calls on all the executives and you find out who has the best reputation, who's hiring the best people. You don't get illegal information about like who moved so many widgets and what the sales numbers were ahead of time. Like that'll get you sued. But you learn the company culture and you outwork all your other competition that is just trying to do, you know, really quick deals just in time. No, like you do 6 months of research and then buy and hold for 5 years in that frame. And by doing that, it's slow money, but it's more reliable money. So it's like our firm managed like 500 million of MIT's endowment.
Wow. Yeah.
And also, you know, with the residue of deep spiritual practice and meditation, like I had a calming effect on the people around me. Like you actually do have to be calm and relaxed and high morality to access your intuition, your deep intuition, your long-term intuition. So not just like a savvy deal, short-term, Bitcoin's going up this day.
I appreciate you speaking to intuition in that process.
It's the most valuable skill. So it's like if I've learned anything, it's the makeup of how to build intuition and grow that over time. Intuition also has a play in how you can create a musical using like a half dozen different actors in short term, but intuition about how the future will play out is based on having a deeply grounded nervous system. And I had to get a deeply grounded nervous system because I was, you know, suffering from schizoaffective bipolar in the veins of the establishment. So like I had to meditate that hard. I had to do yoga that deeply. I had to be that open to those around me and generous to those around me in the languages they were speaking.
Yeah, very adaptable.
So you have to be to get over a deeply traumatic, like, incursion where the energy levels and intensity levels that you're giving off are not held or respected by the rest of society.
Totally. That's an amazing story. And I really appreciate you sharing it here. And I'm curious, did you need to keep that secret that you had gotten that bipolar diagnosis, that you'd been hospitalized?
Well, I'd say I don't anymore because.
But when you were on Wall Street, did you need to keep that secret?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's like absolutely. So like part of the journey into theater that I've done since leaving Wall Street was I was still feeling like it was a form of theater. Like the Wall Street persona working under a very powerful fund manager. It's like, and I didn't go to Yale. I only went to NYU, right? So like that's already a little bit disrespectful.
A little suspect.
A little suspect, yeah. It's like I had to be deeply personable and intuitive for them. So there's a form of Kabuki theater when you're meeting with these powerful CEOs and feeling their vibes and asking the right questions. There's that, but it's also being in the club. So luckily, me clean shaven and like taking notes, and I look like I'm part of the club. You're energy matching for that, and then you're offering connections and hookups and all of that beyond, so that you're staying useful and in that same conversation. But like you're ideally meditating and doing the yoga to flush your energy through, so you don't take up too much of the the energy of the prevailing space so you can still access your intuition.
Yeah, I love that. One thing that's occurring to me hearing you talk about it right now is because you had that insight into there being multiple selves or multiple parts of yourself, you could enter Wall Street and play that game and be in that self when you were meeting with these people, the CEOs and the hedge fund managers, but you could do it without trying to quash your creative parts. You could just ask them to step to the side. And I think that's like it's such a beautiful approach to internal family systems, to seeing these parts of ourselves in our actual life. Like you don't have to get rid of any parts, but you can learn a skill of inviting certain parts for certain circumstances and situations that are more appropriate.
Well, a corporation is Latin for like corpus, like a giant body, right? And so all the parts of a single self will also fit into a corporation too. Like the CMO is going to be like your creative, slightly schizophrenic, like female advertising self. And the CTO is going to be like your autistic, hyper male, reason and order. And the COO is going to be like a military general fixer. And the CEO is going to be your politician who can like get all the Muppets doing the show on time and like advertise to people outside of it for funding and set the general course that other people are going to specialize in. So like even the parts of the self are replicated on the level of the corporation, are replicated on the level of the nation. Yeah. And so when you're looking at these corporations jousting with each other, each corporation has a life cycle and a personality. Each country has a life cycle and a personality. And you're actually looking into that. So if you have been forced, as I was, to do this introspection on the self, you can start applying this in a grounded way.
I love that.
To other structures and get meaningful insight that people who have a more limited, immediate profits focus, they will probably never be incentivized to put in that level of work
on themselves,
to achieve that, because it means losing your limited conception of self. And if you're too well paid, you might never get there. But like the best people are structured to have that level of philosophical rigor and care about reality. They get there in their own ways, even if it's not like to the core of their personality. The people who really last in any field like this have the wisdom and the depth and the capacity to focus their intelligence on things that matter and see the world as a living, dynamic relationship between these selves.
I love that. That was well said.
Thanks,
That's
man.
beautiful. Yeah. And it helps humanize it. I think some people who aren't in that financial world kind of demonize it, right? Or they, the man or the guys in suits.
Yes.
But they're living, breathing people. And some of them are, of course, are really brilliant and creative too. And it's just interesting to get a window into it.
I'm just really lucky that I was given, a place to stand within it. Like I saw it as completely alien to me too, but once I got into it for a few years and learned the basic tools of it, it opened up into this beautiful little microcosm, like with a bunch of very good people. Actually, you hear about like the bad apples and the people who exploit it because it is that important. You're moving that much energy.
That's a way you can look at it, like money as energy.
Yeah, you just want it to be more accessible. But we have edged the end of our time here on this show. Any final thoughts before we put a bow on this and ship it off to the algorithm in the sky?
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you being on. And I didn't expect it to go here, but it was a rich exploration of these different parts and how we can play with them. And we're going to have to end because of our time, but you're now offering this ritual theater improv work and inviting people to play with these parts of themselves. And you're doing it on really cool stages. People should check out your Instagram, your YouTube, and get to see you in action, being your creative self. So yeah.
Oh, and thanks for playing with all of the selves you invite on this podcast too.
Absolutely.
It's not really that disconnected. And
yeah.
See you later.
See you next time.